Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of MSP Community Live. I'm here, which as always means there is no Ray today. Josh, I think you're kind of the official co-host now. Almost every time that I've been on the show, you've been too, and it's been going fantastic. How's it going this morning?
Yeah, it's going really good. It's been a long week. It feels like just yesterday was last week's edition of MSP Community Live, so nice and busy. Yeah, how I think you're currently traveling, but I do have a question for you because you're obviously a Mets fan, and I could Google this, but it'll be
Oh,
much more fun to hear it from you. I. Yeah, heartbreaking. I was rooting for them too. The World Series is probably. I mean, come on, who's rooting for those two teams? Like, it doesn't matter at this point. But what was the thing with Grimace? Can you explain that to an outsider with the whole Grimace Mets
yes.
thing?
Okay. Um, so the Mets started this year way deep in the hole. Just things were going terribly. At one point, some guy threw his glove into the stands and got DFA'd the next day. Just a total disaster of a season. In early June, I forget the exact date, they did some promotion with McDonald's where Grimace threw out the first pitch. And right after that, they went on like a 7 game winning streak. And for the rest of June, and in fact, for the entire rest of the season, the Mets had the best record in baseball since the Grimace first pitch thing. Um, so it turned into just kind of a meme for the whole rest of the season that the Mets were playing with Grimace energy. Like, he was just like, ever since that first pitch, they had just an incredible second half, certainly post break of the season. It was just unbelievable. And so it became just this big self-sustaining thing that every good thing that happened was a result of the Grimace first pitch.
There you go.
Um,
I like it, and
the,
I'm a huge sports fan. I don't really follow a baseball team. I love playoff baseball. There's almost nothing better, but I know enough about baseball to know that it is extremely superstitious sport, more so than any other
yeah,
sport. So if there's something going your way, like whatever it is, you keep doing it and you keep on it. So
it's stuff like that is so much fun about baseball. Like a few years ago, man, more like 10 years ago now, the Royals had a praying mantis that
mhm.
was in the dugout. They called it the rally mantis. So, like there's all sorts of weird things like that happen, and I always think it's fun. How like pitchers won't step on the foul line, and just all sorts of like little superstitions like that. So it makes baseball fun. But yes, unfortunately, the Mets did not make it through the NLCS. That being said, you can't really be that upset about losing to this Dodgers team. This Dodgers team is so stacked that I'm convinced the All Star team might lose to them. Like it's just so ridiculous.
uh,
So it's totally fine. And this was supposed to be a rebuild transition year for the Mets. So even making the playoffs at all was something of a bonus. And the fact that they made a deep run into it, you have to be happy with how that turned out. In
yeah.
hindsight, right at the moment, not so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely exciting. I was pulling for them, but all right. Well, we could go on about baseball for the next 40 minutes, but this is the MSP Community Live, not MSP Baseball Live. So let's get into some stories
That would
here.
be a good show,
Uh,
actually.
yeah. All right. Well, our first story. This is our experience after implementing the yellow caution banner for external emails at the MX filter. So, summary here: 2 weeks ago, this poster emailed all of the client POCs that be implementing a yellow caution banner for all external emails as a precautionary step to make their staff pause and think about external untrusted emails, minimizing security list. Last week, he followed up with a reminder and additional note that we would create exclusions for the top 50 common sender domains. That's a lot of work, but hey, kudos. I don't think they should have any exclusions to those, but that's
It's
we'll
a lot
save
of
that.
work. And man,
Um,
this post needs some paragraphs, like before we even get into the
yeah.
content.
The switch was flipped on Monday morning. By the end of the day, they've had 6 support tickets inquiring about the yellow banner, asking to turn off the yellow banner. I had 2 emails from POCs asking to turn off the yellow banner, including one who replied with notes about the whitelisted sender domains. The influx of tickets continued yesterday for staff members who weren't at work on Monday. I replayed the scenario in the head. I'm pretty sure we did everything right, and implementing the yellow banner isn't the hill I'm ready to die on, so I turned it off for the entire client base. Has anybody implemented the yellow banner, made it a line in the sand for the clients, and survived? Okay, well, I'm ready to pick this apart. There's like four different things that I feel could have been done better here, but what are your thoughts first?
So let's start with the direct question asked about the yellow banner specifically. We can get into the meta discussion after that. Um, I gotta say, I actually kind of side with the clients on this one in that there the problem with the yellow banner or the external tag in the subject line or anything like that, um, aside from if you implement it wrong, breaking like DKIM and such, that aside, you see that on every message coming in, and now it means nothing, right? That's the
Yep.
biggest issue with this. And I know some like security frameworks require it, maybe even some carrier applications require it for insurance or things like that, and like maybe you have to do it for that reason. But absent some kind of obligation to do that, I'm kind of the belief that the external tag is overblown in its usefulness. Unless I think one of the comments pointed out, and I agree with this too, unless you're using a solution that can do them dynamically, such as this is the first time you've received an email from this. Those I believe in strongly. The actual like tag everything is external just gets ignored because it shows up on literally everything. So that's my response to the actual question. Like the client is kind of right in that it's not providing nearly as much security benefit as an implementer might think.
Yeah, I so we this is something that we require an external banner. I know I've talked about our cybersecurity maturity model a couple times, and it's a very quick win. It's level one on theirs, and to me, I agree that like I mean, once you get used to it, you're blind to it. But it's a very small, easy step. It's really a quick free win, and you can kind of, you get that little dopamine hit, like, hey, we did something. We increased our security just a little bit, right? It's a small stepping stone in the right direction. It doesn't hurt anything to have it on there. Now, okay. I will say it could potentially hurt because I'm interested to see just how god awful this yellow banner looks like. Are they just doing HTML code and it's like this huge like banner
I'm
that
sure
takes
it's
up
that
like
same one.
uh
Right, we
I
all so probably all of us as sysadmins, there's this one particular blog post that showed up in like 2017, 2018 when everyone started doing this, and literally every single banner I've seen that does it inline like that, I swear copy pasted the same HTML snippet from this one guy's like blog. You probably
yeah.
did the same thing. I know I did.
Ours is just a little thing, a little red text that says external. So it's not really there. And again, when we require it, it doesn't have to be. I mean, we do have products that do dynamically. SIP also automatically has one where you can just easily turn on, so it's very easy to do dynamically. And the communication piece is something too, like, hey, just something to watch out for. This is why we're doing it. Here's what it looks like, but it's not going to get in the way of formatting the email or anything like that. And people, they don't like change. So of course, when something changes, they're going to create the tickets on those. Um, so yeah, I think it is something that you should have. I mean, how much is it going to help? Very little, because regardless, they're going to get used to it and remove it. But I feel that the implementation could have been done a little bit better on their part, so it didn't blow up in their face with this.
So let me ask you this. I think I was more interested in this story in the meta discussion. And what I mean by that is for you, client calls up and says, "We don't want the banner." Is this a hill to die on, or is this a know your client thing?
I'm not going to die on the hill, but they're also not getting that check off of our maturity model, and they'll forever be not completed with level one. I mean, I would say like we did have, I mean, in all of the clients that we've introduced you to, I had one pushback on it saying like, well, we don't want it, and it's like, why don't you want it? And they were concerned that that it's going to like change the formatting, it'll make things difficult to read, and all this stuff. And yeah, I literally showed them ours. I'm like, it doesn't have to be like, here's just a little box that says external, and going into, hey, if someone spoofs your email or says, hey, it's coming from Josh at Centrix, but it's actually not, that little external tag can kind of just give you that one little extra, hey, something isn't right here. So once he saw that it really wasn't a big deal, he was like, oh, that's fine. I don't see any reason we can't do that. But if someone absolutely didn't want it, I mean, then it would go, okay, well, what's your regulatory compliance? Does your insurance require it? Do whatever regulatory control board you have require it? Well, then you don't have a choice unless you're willing to accept a business risk of a fine over something so small and minuscule as a banner. But it's not something I'm going to drop a client over. I don't think it's as bad as like MFA or other things.
Exactly. And so here's just my alternate side of this is that I might make the argument if you're talking about a maturity model, you can make a case. Now, you might ultimately disagree with this case that having the internal conversation that the benefit provided by this is small enough based on how I think it's going to inconvenience users and making that informed risk acceptance might be more mature than blindly following the checklist from a maturity model perspective. And so I think it's just interesting to think about from like a client service provider dynamic. What hills are you willing to die on? And I agree, this isn't one of them, but also like if you're thinking about what your service offerings are to various clients, um, an informed no might be better than a blind yes in some
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah. I mean, if again, it goes to anything with security is sometimes the business needs outweigh the potential risk lowrance, and you're like, okay, well, I'm willing to accept that risk. So then you have to document in a risk register, and then don't just let it sit there. You readdress it
Yeah.
in your meetings, and ask, hey, can this be implemented, or are we still just going to accept the risk? But again, it's a freaking email banner. It shouldn't be that big of a
No,
deal. I don't.
I get it.
Uh, uh,
My point of contention, and it's a very minor point of contention, is that if you came to my company and said, Matt, you're stuck lower on the maturity model because you don't have the email banner, I would push back on that.
well, I mean, you wouldn't get the checkbox, but we're not gonna just you're never gonna get to level 2 unless we do this. Like you won't get the little checkbox, and we'll just go on to the next things and what else we can do. So I can see like just I mean I definitely do things out of spite for sometimes is like you get all the way up to level 4, but just out of spite you're not gonna put that email banner in.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. I don't know. Like we're getting into the nuances of what makes a maturity model and like how you define OML, and that's a whole different can of worms. I just okay, we're belaboring the point.
All right. Well, let's talk
Informed
about
risk taking is a good thing.
let's talk about another security control here. Security training. Does security awareness training work or not? Um, I mean, I think the title alone is the discussion here. So this person looked
Yeah,
back. They looked at the results. He looked at the compromises. He only ran into one case where the business is using security awareness training and had been compromised. Only one. They terminated the employee who caused it. Mm, I
not a fan of
I
that.
no.
I
I
guess we
want
need to
some
know
more
the
information on
details and
that. So yeah,
circumstances,
yeah.
right? Like, did they, but if they just clicked on a phishing link or something, I'm not really a believer in that. If they,
No,
you know, who knows, right? We need to know what happened, and
exactly.
the employee was
So
about to get fired anyway.
so yeah, what are your what are your thoughts on this one? Do you think security awareness training works?
So I do, and if if I can take a moment to soapbox, my big thing with security awareness training is it works even better if you get yourself in the mindset that security awareness training is not just sending out fake phishing campaigns and making you watch those regulatory videos that we all like kill an hour per quarter or month or whatever dealing with. Um, if you get into using security awareness training as part of building an overall culture, like to the point where you start mentioning it during meetings or talking about emerging threats, like just like any other thing going on in the business, and use that as the foundation, right? So you say, hey, in that training, that like monthly staff meeting, hey, that thing that you went over this month in the training, um, our competitor down the street or this other client I know or this other company we worked that got popped by something like that. Um, or just even a reminder, hey, watch out for that. Like just make it part of the culture. I think that's more effective. But to the original question, yes, absolutely. It falls into the same bucket of it can't hurt anything. Now there will still be things that you don't detect or like ways that you weren't trained for, but you're not going to make anything worse by making your staff aware of ways that they can be compromised. So long answer to short question.
Yeah, I think the other side too, and this applies to a lot of things in life. You get out of it what you put into it. When we enroll our clients into the security awareness training platform, I do a full like demonstration on it. I work with the managers and I say, hey, whoever's a manager, like you please, like this is how you use it, and you get the best results out of it. If you put more into it. So if you're engaged with the platform, engaged with your employees, and again, like you said, building that culture. We have clients who they get like bonus bucks for the business, depending on what they're doing. They have like internal KPIs based off of the security and, discussion points. And then usually I'll do like an all staff meeting with them to go over cybersecurity basics, kind of the stuff that's covered, but reinforced in like a Q&A session. I know internally for October Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I'll make a cybersecurity Jeopardy that's fun to play based off of the things that we've learned in the security awareness training. Every Thursday in our stand-up is Threat Reduction Thursday. So I go over the stats of our security and then, hey, these are attacks that are becoming more popular. These are things to be aware of out there. Here's some, news, things like that. So I think we have a really good security focused culture here that I'm definitely proud to lead and contribute to, which is great. But I mean, I've seen the same thing with clients, is the ones who actually take it seriously, who get involved with it. And when we're doing our business reviews with them, bringing it up, and it's not just, oh, this we're not just pointing out, oh, these employees haven't done it, let's get on them. It's like, how are you utilizing this and like in your day to day, and how can we help you utilize this better to build the culture? We've had them do like fun games where if people spot it, they get like rewarded and things like that. So there's tons of things you can do with it. But if you just feel like it's just a video, or the IT's trying to trick us into clicking things, it's the wrong mindset to have. I did have pushback from one of our clients who they had an employee that's like, why am I wasting my time reading about the pig butchering scams? It's never going to affect my job. And I was like, well, do you know how many people fall for those? Do you think it'd affect your job if you fell for those and lost, $40,000 or whatever it might be? I think the statistic was, according to the FBI, I mean, it was like the state of Minnesota alone lost collectively. It was over $10 million in that. Like, these things can absolutely affect your work. I mean, there's stories with an employee at Dragos, the security company. He posted on social media that he was excited to start. Threat actors compromised his personal Gmail account and then posed as him as the new employee to Dragos, and then got access to theirs. So these sort of things come up in security awareness training, that it's not just, oh, these are, phishing things to watch out for. Your personal accounts can absolutely affect business and are just as important to learn what's out there.
Agreed, right? That's the main takeaway with awareness training, is that yes, you can buy the awareness training, you can check the box, you can watch the videos and send the phishing campaigns. To me, that's not really awareness training. That's satisfying the requirements for compliance or whatever other framework you're following. And it's not a bad thing to do. And I guess based on that post, there is some effect to it, right? It was actually kind of nice to see some original research in it, which was kind of cool, or quasi original research. Um, but that second level of developing the culture is really the key to making this successful. And I think a lot of organizations don't get there because they just get so ingrained in, we have to do these phishing campaigns, we have to do these videos, and to them that's what awareness training is, that they don't really get to that culture level, and not out of choice, they just don't know how, or even that they have to do that.
Yep. And that's, again, what with our cybersecurity maturity model, that's one of the things we instill with them. Also at level 1, in addition to the external banner, is obviously the security awareness training, because every cyber insurance requires it. But then we also say you need a designated security officer. Well, what does that person do? It's not just, oh, who do we call for security incidences? It's they're the person who's taking on the responsibility of building and owning the cybersecurity culture for their company. Well, what does that mean? Well, here's what it means and ways that we can help you establish that. So, and it goes an extremely long way. Even just doing the all staff like awareness, like, and it's not so much here are things to watch out for and the phishing, but how do you report threats? What kind of threats you're reporting? Like, what's your chain of command to report, and not having that fear of not reporting things, and also not having the fear of clicking on things. You know, when they said that they fired the person who clicked on the link, anybody can click on the link. It doesn't, I mean, it could get any of us. Heck, I could click on a link. There's a person who's been in our company, who's been in IT for 25 years, and he's smarter than I am when it comes to a lot of technical stuff. The phishing campaign got him because it was like, this was what I expected at the right time. Ended up being the simulated phishing. Like, use it as a training opportunity. I mean, it just happened to a client of ours. Like, the guy accidentally, clicked on the link. We fixed the business email compromise quickly before anything was done. And instead of just going, okay, well, we're going to fire the employee, like, we set up 2 all staff training sessions. We used it as a training, like an actual, like, learning opportunity. We made the company themselves made more policies around, like, porting and what to do and things like that. And they made it very clear, what to watch out for. Don't click, don't enter your information. But if you do, like, report it as soon as possible. Don't try to hide it and like, oh, I clicked it, nothing happened, right? Use it as a learning opportunity. I don't feel that harsh punishment like that is the way to go. Unless it was something he did on purpose or completely, I mean, there
There's
are edge
context missing,
cases.
and
Yeah.
I think we don't really know enough to judge that. It could have been someone was on a PIP or they were about to
Mm-hmm.
be let go anyway. Um, it may not even, for all we know, it has nothing to do with the clicking on the phishing email. We just don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, hope to your point, hopefully no one is getting disciplined for falling victim to a phishing scam. That's the absolute worst thing you can do.
So, all right, well, we got that one done. So let's
Oh
go
yeah, we
off
beat
of
that to death.
let's go off of security controls here and go into some business operations. So this one's titled, "Is this normal for MSPs?" So this person posted a couple days ago, "I'm currently escalations at the MSP that I work with, where is expected to answer the phones regularly, work on tickets resulting from those calls, work on things that get assigned to us by tier ones, the team lead, the help desk manager, and even engineering sysadmin. The escalation process recently changed. If Tier 1 works on a ticket for 45 minutes and they are unable to resolve it, it becomes an instant escalation. For the first week or two that this change was made, all of said escalations went to me. This is despite having 2 other escalation techs at the time. I got slammed for about 3 weeks, resulting in an insane amount of unneeded stress and frustration. When I throw that 45-minute number out, the actual is much lower. I just wanted to avoid giving a specific value. Now they're wanting to shift work that our engineering admin team traditionally does on my team. This is fine and good. I feel if we're getting assistance and guidance from said team, but this isn't the case. In the past, I'd offer to come in over the weekend to shadow a sysadmin on this task only to get silence in response. With the way things are going, I'm on the urge of a nervous breakdown driven by nonstop stress." So yeah, is this
A
normal?
lot here. Kind of 2 answers to this question, because the answer to is this normal and something that happens all over the place at MSPs? Yes. Is this something that happens frequently in well-run, mature MSPs? No. So
No.
the answer the answer to normal is kind of, but depending on where you look. So my first thing with this is I saw in here. Let me back up for a second. The idea of having as one of the criteria for escalations a time limit does make sense, for especially for call-in service tickets, right? So if you're dealing with someone on the phone in a long-standing issue, um, and you're stuck, yes, stop spinning your wheels. Now, that shouldn't be the only escalation criteria, but I do believe time should be part of or one of the factors determining, do you escalate something. So I don't see any issue with that. In fact, that's a good thing. Now, there's a whole different flow chart as far as when to escalate, and in many cases, you would sidestep the time and escalate much sooner than 45 minutes, depending on what it is. That aside, I heard multiple times in this some kind of they or almost some kind of like higher power who's dealing with ticket dispatching here and text scheduling. And so my question is, this isn't a question for Reddit necessarily. This is a discussion with whoever is handling dispatch of this organization. And what I mean by that is, how did this person end up dealing with all of the escalations? Why weren't they distributed evenly with some kind of round robin format or whatever they used for escalation, right? Well, what are those other two people doing when you said he got all of them?
Yep.
Was it a skill set thing? Like maybe he's the 365 expert, or maybe he's the VMware Hyper-V expert for some kind of crazy problem that only he could solve. Okay, maybe. Was it a workload thing? Was it self-dispatch and the other guys didn't want to take the tickets that looked like they would be difficult? Is it one of those clients where you see the caller ID and kind of shudder that you don't want to deal with? Like, what's the deal here? Um, to me, that's the issue. There's a lot of issues. That's the first one, though, is thinking about how this organization dispatches in a way that's fair. The other thing is, um, we went through this multiple iterations and multiple solutions and multiple like we never came up with the solid answer to it. If the lower level support desk queue, if they are able to decide when to escalate, there's always this tension between them and the escalation team in that the escalation team feels like things are just getting chucked over the fence without enough work. And the support desk team or whoever the tier is below this escalations team feels like, well, what the hell? We're pushing back. Why are we getting pushback? We're stuck on something. You guys should deal with it, right? And so um, that's why there are managers on these teams, not just to assign tickets. Like having that discussion, and maybe they just need to like get in a room and figure out what the tension is here. But I would bet that the escalation people feel like the lower level techs are not doing enough work or not going far enough before saying giving up and throwing their hands up. And the tier below them is saying, we got an angry client on the phone. I'm escalating this so that they can be happier. And they just
Yep.
need to, they or probably their managers need to go in and figure out what's actually happening here and just have a discussion and resolve it. And I will, sorry, I'm taking over the floor on this just because I went through this so many times. Um, it's not something that necessarily will be solved completely, maybe ever. Um, there's always going to be that feeling of they're escalating too soon versus they shouldn't be pushing back because we're trying to keep the clients happy. Like that tension for us never fully went away, but it did get a lot better once we started like having discussions about why this is happening. All right,
What I'm
I'll
also
stop. I will
no,
cede
you're
the
good.
floor.
What I'm also waiting for is they're expected to have 8 billable hours a day. So the tier one people are just gonna, oh, I'm gonna work on this ticket because I get to build that whole time, and then it just automatically gets thrown over the fence and someone else's problem. I don't know if that's the thing or not,
Yeah,
but
right. The
it
2 hour
seems like this
password
is the
reset.
case. Yeah. I mean, I really don't have anything else to add other than I think agreeing with you that this isn't a question for Reddit. This is a internal question. Like if you're feeling burnt out and this is ridiculous, like have a conversation with your manager, not Reddit. I mean, we're going to tell you, yeah, this isn't normal. And this isn't the way, and, maybe find a new MSP, but I mean, the first conversation should be with your management and like saying, "Hey, I don't think this is right, and I'm getting burnt out, and I need some help here," and allowing them to fix it. And then, obviously, depending on what happens after that, uh, go ahead and post on Reddit and I new MSP job.
Yeah.
But absolutely, like just speak up and say something. Don't just sit there and take the mountain of tickets. Because if you don't say anything, you can't fix what's not broken. If no one reports something, then how do you know what to fix it? So,
Yeah, if I gave one piece of advice to this company or this person, it would be go find, or if it doesn't exist, write your escalation and dispatch process as far as like who gets it, when do you escalate, like actually sit in a room and if it doesn't exist somewhere, get up on a whiteboard and figure out what that process is. And I bet the exercise of doing that, you may fix your issue because someone will say, oh, well, this is how this one person got like every ticket.
yep. All right, well, let's see what the next story has in store for us here. Oh, security frameworks. I love this. We're trying to add some more meat to our QBR meetings. Given the upward spiral of cyber insurance requirements, we're considering bringing up people up to CSF 2.0. I think that in general it's a good idea. We're using the newer version of Connect Secure that still gets caught by us. Okay, no, we'll just go through there. It isn't horrible,
Yep,
but
yep.
can result in a fair amount of work writing policies. We did QBR with client yesterday, so we explained the whole thing. But given the reaction, I'm left to wonder if they even see it as a necessary thing. I'll add this client in general get it. They have actual budgets and mostly listen. What's your experience, Matt? I have wanted to submit talks to conferences for a while, but I haven't really figured out what to call it and what to say other than, I like our maturity model. I think I just figured it out. I think the talk is going to be, and I know we don't have a dolphin on the show, so excuse me, but how to talk compliance with clients who don't give a shit about compliance. Because
Hmm.
unless you're in a regulatory industry, why do you care about compliance? And the answer is they don't. They don't care what CIS controls, what CSF, what NIST, all of that. Like, if you start going into the 100 different controls and, well, according to CIS 8.7, like, you need this, and like, why? Like, they don't care, and they shouldn't care, right? So, in my opinion, you're going about this the entire wrong way, and you're just forcing. Oh, we're making you go to CSF 2.0, and we're doing all of this stuff. But why? Why are you doing it? Other than, oh, it's a framework. Before I go any
Yes.
further, I mean, go ahead and add your stuff, and then then I'll go back to it.
Yeah. So I'm going to try very hard to not monologue this time and just go one point. Um, so in what you said, I think you kind of highlighted the issue in that if you go to a client and start talking about compliance, they don't understand the difference between regulatory required obligated compliance like PCI or HIPAA or CMMC based on the line of business they're in or what they do versus a framework that's meant to help them model and decide what to do from a security perspective like CIS or CSF or Trustmark or any of those guys. And I think helping them to understand this is stuff you need to do because of the line of business you're in. This on the framework side is something to help you decide what security to implement might help that conversation because you're right, like compliance is not different than any other business risk, right? If you fail your audit, it costs you X dollars or you lose these customers or what have you, right? That's it. It's a monetary cost. And it's no different than if the office gets hit by a meteor, right? Like you think of it the same way when you're modeling risk. You fail your audit, that's a risk. Office burns down, that's a risk. Um, I think explaining the difference between frameworks and compliance would really, really help this conversation. And I'll stop there before going further into any kind of soapbox or monologue.
Yeah, I mean, this is really why that we built our whole maturity model that we use at our organization. It is built on cyber insurance requirements and CIS controls, but it's extremely simplified, and it's a way to show, like, this is kind of security best practices, and how you mature over time. And again, behind the scenes, there's a lot of work into it. So behind the scenes, like implementing, when we tell the client to do, hey, we're going to do this, I mean, behind the scenes, okay, well, that covers CIS, these specific controls. But the client sees as, oh, well, yeah, I need that. Or, well, you should have an incident response plan, et cetera, things like that. And now, if they do have a regulatory requirement such as FTC safeguards or HIPAA, if you go through and get to level, we say like 3 or 4 on our framework, you are going to be like, that covers the groundwork for no matter what regulatory requirement you're there. Like, cool, let's get you a good level of maturity, and then you can focus on the specifics. And we're not HIPAA CMMC experts. I mean, we can read the controls and figure how they go, but we're not going to audit you. But if you just go to them, they're going to tell you you need this stuff anyway, plus the specifics. So let's get you the base work of a good, mature organization in cybersecurity. And then once you're there, now we can look at the specifics. And at that point, we're aligning them to CIS, but they don't even realize it. We're instead addressing how to operationally and securely mature your organization, and the business risks that go into, not having these, tying it to, whatever, cyber insurance or just downtime and things like that. So we're like, that's how we're adding our meat. We're completely aligning to these frameworks without saying, oh, well, you need to do this control, because again, they don't give a shit about the controls.
So let's step up a level, and if we take off our security hats and think about why you get pushback from this when having the discussion with clients, and I think that's what the poster is trying to ask, although not really making it clear. My first instinct or response to this is that their relationship with their client is not strong enough that the client sees this as anything other than one of those checklist sales tools things. Like they almost feel like their account manager is a quasi salesperson and is using this as one of those things that, hey, here's our line card of stuff we sell. You should be aligned with all of this
Yep.
and have everything. And that equals security because they haven't established that. Man, I hate the phrase. I hate it. I hate it. But if you think of the like trusted advisor model and you really get into the mindset and have a strong enough relationship with your contact at the client that they trust your advice and they see this as stuff that you should do, not just here's a bunch of stuff that we're trying to sell. Um, they let their guard down a little bit and are more open to having a conversation about this. And one of the ways to help with that is show them things on the framework that are simply configuration changes or process changes. It doesn't cost them anything. It might even be included in their agreement, right? Going into 365 and changing a setting, or going in, changing a group policy object to comply with something that one of the CIS benchmarks requires. Stuff that won't necessarily be an additional professional services fee can sometimes get them into that mindset of this is stuff that we're just trying to help you be more secure with, as opposed to, hey, this framework says I need to buy this tool or I need to
Yep.
start up in my 365 license. You can have the discussion about the potential benefit, going back to our email thing before, right? Is this worth the cost if you consider the risk versus cost? Um, but start with that and really pay attention to, does the client only think I'm trying to solve them something, or do they get that I'm trying to help them? And think
Yep.
about from that angle. And I think a lot of cases the answer is no. They don't get, because they've seen from like vendors so many of these like, hey, here's the calculator for how much downtime you'll lose without our software. And like there's so much of that stuff out
Yep.
there that the truly useful stuff now gets lost in all of it, and it gets seen as another kind of fake tool. Like, hey, you're going to save all this money, or you're going to lose all this money if you don't. And all of a sudden, one that's real comes around, and they think, oh, it's just another marketing thing.
Yep. I mean, I will say, to the point, like, it's great that they're trying to align their security stack and what they're doing to a framework. Absolutely, you should be doing that, but I don't just pass it on to your customers saying, "Oh, we're aligning to this, and now we need to do this control, this subsection." Like, because again, that's why you get the blank state. Like, it's when you start. It's the same thing as you're starting to go technical. Like, oh, we're going to increase the RAM to 64 gigs to do all of these hyper processing and all that. Like, they don't care about the technical deep dive stuff. They don't care about the compliance. They just want their stuff to work, want it to be secure, and that's what you need to explain, is the business side of it, and don't get deep into the details. You wouldn't do that for technical explanations, so you shouldn't do it for your compliance scoring as well. So I think we beat it. Thank you, because now I finally have my talk outline. So I'm going to get working on that here. But in the meantime,
I have
this is
one
an
final
interesting
point
one.
while you're pulling up that
Yes.
story, and that is we can probably simplify this entire thing to, when you start talking about something like a framework or something that you're going to align to, have an answer to the client's first question of why. Like, why CSF? Why CIS? Like, why did you
Mhm.
pick this? Not just, I heard it was quote unquote best practice. No, a real answer as to why you're doing this versus something else.
Perfect. All right. Well, I do have another one pulled up here, and this is an interesting one to talk about. So, entitled "Am I Screwed?" Microsoft P1. Now, I'm super familiar with this. I read this, so I'll just give you the summary without scrolling down. This person was using the technical loophole on Microsoft 365 to where if you want to implement certain features that are locked behind a license, they only had one license for the tenant because that one license does unlock the features and it allows you to have the ability to set that feature for all of the users. Some people do it. I've seen it done with E5s. I've seen it done with P1. So in this particular case, it was P1. They did claim that a vendor said that they recommended they do this so that their tool worked properly. And now they have a client got an official license notice from Microsoft stating that it's not part of the Microsoft end user license agreement, and going forward they need to pay for all of the licenses. So in a nutshell, I mean, yes, Microsoft licensing is very confusing, but if they have 50 users in the tenant and one P1 license, you can apply that conditional access policy to all 50 users. But again, if those users are using a feature that is unlocked by that P1, each of them need that P1 license. They weren't doing it. So, I mean, I wouldn't say this person is screwed, but now they're
They're
going
going
to
to
have
lose the
some hard
client.
conversation. Yeah, they're going to have some hard conversations to have. So, what are your thoughts on this here?
So the reason I think this one is noteworthy is I'm kind of happy to see Microsoft is starting to crack down on this. Like you, I've seen it all over the place, but it just goes to like yeah, the specific technical thing is okay, right? I've seen this happen. It's just not ethical. Like it's one of those things that yeah, you can get away with it and the thing will still work, but it falls into that same bucket as I feel like I'm dating myself now, but when you used to need terminal server CALs, right, and things like that. And it would still kind of work anyway without the right number of CALs, or even like server CALs, right? Forget about remote desktop ones or database CALs when it's per user. Um, yeah, it'll work without it, but it's just so unethical to do things like that. And eventually the client's going to find out.
Yep.
I will not give any specifics, but I have seen in organizations um, technical people do something that's not even just gray area, but like red line bad ethics as far as installing like a pirated application, right? Or
Oh,
doing something
yeah.
like that to a client, right? You've seen it. I've heard about it, and it's just like that's obviously a bad thing, but even the gray areas, like, yeah, it'll work, you're fine, client, like you don't have to like we're not doing our clients a service by letting them get away with stuff like that. And I
No.
think that's the lesson from all of this, that eventually this stuff catches up. And when the client finds out, they're not going to be mad at Microsoft for enforcing it. They're going to be mad at you. They don't
Because
care
you're the
about the
trusted
money.
advisor.
Exactly. The trust is lost, right? Yes, having to buy the licenses is one thing, and it's not a fun check to write. But now, if you go back up to our last story and you say, "Hey, client, you need this," you have no trust left at this
Mm-hmm.
point, and that's why the squinty eyes come out, right? And the I don't really trust you anymore, MSP. That's the big risk with this. So it's I feel like it's a weird thing to say that yeah, I have to remind the industry, and maybe maybe I don't. Like it's not a common thing, but we do hear it happen occasionally. You only have one chance to trash your reputation or to lose that being viewed as someone ethical or as an upstanding organization or company, and don't blow it over some stupid licensing.
Yeah, I mean, get a second opinion or something, wherever your license is from, whatever vendor it is. I mean, unless you're going direct, but ask. I mean, just ask because that information is readily out there. Yeah, if you would have posted on that, hey, my vendor told me this. Is this correct? There would have been hundreds of people that have said no, that's wrong according to the licenses. This could have been avoided, but I mean, going
Right.
forward, there is potential ways to salvage it. Saying, "Hey, the vendor made a mistake at this point," and I mean, you can push the blame, but ultimately, it does lay on you, and you're the trusted advisor providing these licenses and the services. So, just know what you're doing, please, and ask for help
Yeah.
and ask questions. So
Agreed.
all
Agreed.
right, well, let's get through this last one here quickly. Um, this person, this comes from the sysadmin subreddit. So yeah, I've accidentally damaged the server at my workplace. What steps should I take? So it was a Dell PowerEdge T320 with an outdated BIOS. He attempted to update, but it didn't work. He powers it on. It gets stuck on the black screen. He downloaded it. Now he's facing an error. What steps should I take next? So when I first read that, I assumed that like he dropped it or something, but
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
yeah. And I'm like, well, I mean, you just own up to it, but I mean, really the same thing. He didn't damage it. I mean, he was doing normal maintenance on it, and the machine isn't working. So even if he did drop it or break it, I mean, you tell someone as soon as possible and explain the situation and say, hey, that this is where we're at and what are next steps.
So I'm curious your take on this because I'm kind of thinking the same thing, right? Okay, either you fess up to it or you like, call support, right? It's a server. Hopefully you have support on it if iDRAC is not working. Um, when you read this, what is your thought on like why this is being posted? Like, is it that he's working on something he's not supposed to be working on? Like, does he feel like he messed something up and like doesn't want to face the music? Like, what's the overall thing that led to this post? Because to me,
Yep.
it's just a technical problem. Call support.
Yeah, that is interesting. That I didn't think about. So yeah, if he was trying to help out or do something that he wasn't supposed to, or maybe he's the only IT guy for the organization and he doesn't know what to do at this point. And because if your boss isn't technical, if you're the only sysadmin and you report to somebody higher up who isn't technical at all, of course they're going to think, oh, you broke it, so you need to fix it and make it
Yeah.
work. They're not going to understand that this was a completely normal thing, or I tried updating it, etc. So that I, I I don't know, but I would just go to assume that this person is probably less experienced and just they they don't know what to do at this point. Like, hey, I I did this. I tried doing this normal operation, but because I pushed the button, I broke it, and I am at fault, and I don't know what to do next. I just want it to work.
I wonder if
Well,
they
that's
let support lapse.
which I
But
mean, it
you know
isn't.
what though?
Yeah,
It's so funny, like you say that because I remember it, not so much anymore. Again, I'm starting to feel old in some of these discussions, but I remember during some postmortems of like servers that went down, having the feeling that, look, the state that this machine was in, whoever the next person to reboot it, it wasn't going to come back up,
yep.
right? And it just happened to be you who like installed something that needed a reboot. Um, yeah, maybe that's what it was. Um, I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing to post. In fact, I'm kind of curious as to what the comments are because to me, this is just something broke. Um, that
Yeah,
that's it.
that's that's entirely it. And it was like the one time very early in my career, I had a client try to fight me over the phone. That was pretty awesome. His computer was way well past warranty, but he didn't want to replace it. So inevitably, the hard drive failed. But much before that, we put them on SharePoint OneDrive and basically said, hey, all your documents, please store on this. If you store them locally, there's no backups and they could fail, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the Windows update got pushed out by the RMM platform. Computer rebooted, didn't come back up. Hard drive failed. And, he, of course it happened and, oh, we'll get you a new one. But then it turned to come to find out that, well, he stored all of his stuff on his hard drive. And guess what? Now all of his files are gone. And instantly his exact phrase was, what do you mean they're all gone? Like, you guys broke it, you needing them back. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you didn't store them where they were supposed to. They're gone. And he's like, well, why don't you come down here and say that to my face like a man?
What?
Yeah, I instantly, I was like, I wasn't even mad at that point. I was just so taken back. But the issue wasn't that the update didn't break the PC. It just, that was the state the computer was in. And the update, like, yeah, we pushed the button to send the update, but the files aren't gone because of the update. The files are gone because things weren't we didn't even need to push that. At some point, that thing would have, he could have had it in his pack going home, and then it shut off,
Yeah.
it ran out of battery. It was an inevitable, right? It just so happened that we pushed the button and now it's our fault. Like, that's not the case.
Yep.
And I think the more experience you get, the more you'll realize that it's just something that happens. So
Agreed.
Perfect. All right. Well, we're almost at the top of the hour. I need to hop over to our new IR game. So if you haven't checked this out, irgame.ai, we do have an entirely new scenario. We are going through an enterprise BEC, business email compromise. In my opinion, a lot of organizations don't take them as serious as they should. They can be extremely damaging, and we take you through what that looks like. So if you've never seen that or want to see just how ugly a business email compromise can get, come check us out. Matt, do you got anything else going on that you'd want to plug before we go?
So biggest thing is not next week, but the week after is IT Nation Connect. So anyone who will be there, please stop by, come hang out. I have more things going on than I can even start to mention during the show here, but the full agenda is on the website, and we have a lot of good stuff there, and most of it is not even necessarily about us or ConnectWise. It's just about things that we've all learned along the way and sharing experiences and best practices and things. So looking to see everyone there, and that's all I got.
Perfect. Well, thanks for tuning in, Matt. I'm glad to have you back. Obviously, I love anyone who comes on the show. It's all been fun, but I'm glad you're back. I missed you, buddy. So tune in next week. I think Matt will be here, but if not, we'll be sure to bring you the news, and it will be a great week. So stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.